All right. We're going to talk about chemical formulas and bonds. But before we begin anything, and I'm just going to add this part right before the video that I just shot just now, we're going to talk about what is a chemical bond. I think this is a very important thing for us to know, to get the definition right from the get-go. A chemical bond is when two or more particles, either atoms or ions, come together and are attracted to each other by electrostatic forces. Whoa, electrostatic forces. What is an electrostatic force? Well, an electrostatic force is simply when the electron of one particle is attracted to the nucleus of another particle, as well as some of the forces that's in play between that same electron to its own nucleus. So this attraction towards this nucleus from this electron and the other particle's electron also have some sort of interaction or attraction towards the other atom's nucleus. So there is some sort of like forces of attraction between the electrons and the nucleus, and so they come together. All right, and now the way they come together could be like in a gradient, or what can I say that? The way they come together is different, because some particles, when they come together, they have a very strong electrostatic force, and other particles, when they come together, have weaker electrostatic forces. And so, and how do we know if those electrostatic forces are strong or weak? Well, we can determine that, and those are the things that we'll talk later. All right. I'm back again, and we're going to talk about chemical bonds and formulas. Now, chemical bonds and formulas. Now, before I begin, it would just great to tell you that your book teaches this, and the curriculum teaches this is two different units: the chemical bonds aspect of it and the chemical formulas aspect of it. Now, I like to treat and do these things in combination of each other, because I think the types of chemical bonds reflect the way you write the formulas and also the way you name those formulas. So they're very complementary, all right? And so what I've done is I have categorized chemical bonds, the types of chemical bonds and formulas that we will see in this course. First and foremost, one of the most important ones are the ionic bonds. Then we're going to talk about covalent and metallic bonds, and then talk a little bit about acids when it comes down to it. All right? Now, this is not the only lecture about all these in one shot, because it's actually quite a long unit. But I'm going to just briefly go over the whole entire thing, these three, as a whole, and then I'm going to go to individual parts and talk about them in detail separately. Now, let's first talk about ionic compounds. What are ionic compounds? Well, ionic compounds are when they have an ionic bond. Bond is simply an attraction of one particle with another particle coming together. All right? And so when they come together is due to the electrostatic interaction or forces. All right? And I'll explain that in class later on. All right. So ionic bonds, and what are they? Well, ionic bonds come when a metal and a nonmetal come together. And the atoms come together. And when the atoms come together, electrons are given off by one of them, usually by the metal atom, and the electrons are given to the non-metal atom. And when electrons are given away and received, it becomes ions. Now, atoms that gave away electrons will now have more protons than electrons. And so it now becomes a cation, all right, or a positive ion. Atoms that have received electrons from the metals now have less protons and more electrons. And they become anions, which are negative ions. And we've already discussed how to derive positive and negative ions. Now, these cations and anions all come together to form an ionic compound, a lattice structure. And we'll talk more in depth in the next video. The next type of bonds that occurs in nature, and man-made as well, are covalent bonds. Covalent bonds are when nonmetals and another nonmetal come together. All right, these atoms come together and they share their electrons. That means the electrons are shared between the both of them. And these are covalent compounds. Now, in reality, covalent compounds can also involve a semi-metal or metalloid and a non-metal. All right. Now, there are three different types of covalent compounds. There are the gaseous covalent compounds. There's the organic covalent compounds, or the organic chemicals. All right. These are the things that make all of us. And then there are the giant structures like diamonds and graphite, right? So, what's the difference between these three? Well, we're gonna talk about in this unit, talk about gaseous covalent compounds, and we're gonna talk about giant structures a little later in the course, a little later in this chapter. It turns out that some of the gaseous compounds, gaseous molecules, covalent molecules, can be, some of them, when you put them in water, form inorganic acids. And this is another category of chemicals that we have to deal with, okay? And so it has its own methods of writing the formulas as well as how to name it. And we'll go through all of that in class. And finally, we're going to talk about metallic bonds and how metals are named quite easily. And there are basically two types of metallic bondings. There's metals of the same kind that's bonded together to form this really nice repeating row structure thingy that you see here. And there's metals of a different kind that come together, that are bonded together. And we'll go in detail about metallic bonding later on. So, again, to recap, we have ionic types of bonds, we have covalent bonds, and we have metallic bonds. And there, as we can see, there's a whole slew of different types of covalent bonds. That's it.